Yo, what's going on, Noles Nation? It's TJ Wilson here with DoakTalk. I am your host. Want to jump right into it and kind of go over and discuss the Charleston Southern game, and then of course, I guess the main topic as of right now, the most important topic, some coaching names and things like that that's been floating around. But first, make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, like this video, subscribe to the channel. Welcome to the Dope Talk family. You know, we hang out pretty good over here, talk about all things FSU on field, of course, recruiting, coaching changes, whatever it may be. The news of FSU will get covered through here. So go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel. And we also have, behind enemy line segments talking about upcoming opponents and things like that. We'll have a Florida edition dropping later on this week. All right, guys. Switch right to FSU ended up winning 41-7 against Charleston Southern, the FCS team. A couple things I want to talk about. I guess we could discuss the offense. I'm not really going to go into details because it's an FCS team. You're supposed to do what you're supposed to do. But it's a few things that pretty much stood out to me within the game, within the game rather, that caught my attention for stuff we could build on for the 2025 season and beyond. First, the trending topic, of course, is Luke Kromenhoek, quarterback. Luke ended up starting the game against Charleston Southern, went 13-20 for 209 yards, 3 touchdowns passing, along with 31 rushing as well. I like what I saw out of Luke. He had some window throws, some throws that you fit into some tight windows. Think too the slant touchdown to Hakeem, that was a pretty good throw, and also was another slant that Hakeem called over the middle. He kind of juggled within traffic, but Luke threaded the needle. It was one to Landon Thomas across the middle as well. And shot to Landon. He made a hell of a catch to hold on to the ball as the safety was coming down on him, but it was an equally good throw by Luke. So you saw the arm strength and the zip that we kind of saw within the recruiting process, and some of the things I was very high on him for, as far as ball placement and arm strength. And then there was the one play to Ja'Kai Douglas that really opened my eyes when he was rolling to the right and threaded the needle, a strike to Ja'Kai, hit him in stride, and the rest is history. You saw how fast Ja'Kai can be once he's built up speed and hit in stride, going 71 yards to the house for a touchdown. But yeah, that throw was a needle throw, threaded it, put it right on Ja'Kai, right in stride, and you saw the athleticism, you saw the movement in regards to what he can do, and of course the arm strength. So those are pretty much all of the things why I was so high on Luke coming out of high school. And remember, out of high school, Luke was only a 2-year starter. Started his junior and his senior year. He was new to the quarterback position, and also he was a backup his sophomore year. The reason he was a backup his sophomore year, there was a senior on his high school team that was a blue chip quarterback in his own right, and ended up being signing with the Auburn Tigers. So again, 2-year starter, still brand new to the position, and of course this year wasn't handed the reins full time or anything along those lines, but played sparingly, and you saw some of the signs, some of the growth in some games. But it's just too much incompetence around him, if we're being quite honest, to kind of get a good gauge. I do think he left the pocket too soon in certain situations against Charleston Southern. But again, can you blame him? I mean, the kid's been hearing footsteps and getting hit all year behind that not banged up, just terrible offensive line. So for him to move out of the pocket too soon shows his youth, and also him just being stage fright a bit with being hit within the offensive line. So I guess the more comfortable he get, the better the offensive line gets moving forward. He'll be comfortable and sit in the pocket and things like that. But again, you saw the athleticism, you saw the throws. I know people want to question, well, hey, it was against Charleston Southern, and rightfully so. That's perfectly fine, but you can't take away the throws a kid make or anything like that. I mean, those type of throws are throws. Doesn't matter the type of competition. If you have elite type of throws and make great throws, you just make great throws. Now, I will say the competition, I guess you could say the factor of the competition would be the defensive lines, of course. We'll be playing against a way better defensive line in Florida, and we've seen our offensive line against better defensive line. So what you can take away from it is that Luke won't have enough time to actually sit and digest a lot of things. That's perfectly fine. But what he's done overall, just moving around the pocket, being mobile, making some of the throws, that has nothing to do with the opponent you're playing. But yes, we play a team against Florida. He's not going to have that much time as he had against, Charleston Southern. That's going to be evident. And it'll be tighter coverage in certain situations too. but the accuracy was pretty much there. It wasn't any wild throws that I can remember from Luke. And speaking of offensive line and speaking of offensive line, it's even we're playing against Charleston Southern, but you still got to have guys that just stand out. That's just giving bad football and just putting bad tape on film. 63 Byers just isn't getting it. Looks terrible out there. Along with Mo Smith, and Mo Smith is the most experienced player on the offensive line. Over 300 career start snap. No, sorry, I think it was. I forget how many snaps, how many starts, 3,000 snaps or some shit along those lines. A plethora of starts, and this is probably his worst season as a starter. Man, this has been bad regression, no development on the offensive line. Body type, as far as physical development from him, isn't good at all. Just he is what he is when it comes to being an offensive line. To be quite frank, there's no way. If you're looking at a general FSU team, he shouldn't be a 3-year, 4-year, however many years starter at center at all. In the perfect world, and not even in the perfect world at FSU. You can talk about the quote unquote, which we say was the lost decade, but of course we've seen a lot worse since then. But even during those times, there's no way in hell this kid will start at FSU. Probably wouldn't be in the two deep. So that just shows how bad, how far we've fallen as far as offensive line progression and things like that, which isn't good. But better days ahead as we made a change on the offensive line. But it's a few guys that caught my attention during the game on the offense that I want to highlight that I feel like, that I feel like would be pretty. Some names we want to see moving forward as far as what they can do for FSU. A lot of true freshmen kind of stood out to me that I liked a lot. I'll go through a few of them. BJ Gibson. I like what I saw of BJ Gibson. Number 80, played receiver for FSU and return kicks. Well, return punts, if I'm not mistaken. This was his true freshman year. We've been hearing, excitement about BJ Gibson out of practice reports and how he's been doing and things like that on scout team. I do think FSU was probably trying, well, not probably, they were trying to preserve his red shirt for the majority of the year. But BJ is a guy who I think could have probably, just from a movement standpoint, he moved different. You saw the explosiveness, you saw quick twitch, not just the few catches he made, things that I was at the game kind of watching him running his routes, things like that. You saw an explosive player. You saw athleticism. You saw some bounce. You saw some things that you could work with. Offense built for playmakers, so to speak. He fits that athletic playmaker build. And he was pretty fluid catching punt returns as well, too. I would have, just to be real with you, I probably feel more comfortable with him returning punts this year over Lil Wayne McCoy once Jalen Lucas had the season-ending injury. But again, I do feel like Mike Norvell made certain moves as far as, red shirts and things like that. So I do kind of understand that to kind of preserve more eligibility for BJ Gibson. But he is a guy that, well, I think Jalen Lucas will be 100% return guy once he gets back healthy. But BJ is a guy I take a look at as far as punt returns in the future as well. And these are just guys on offense that I'm excited for moving forward in the future. Elijah Moore, we know Mike Norvell stated this year earlier this week that Elijah Moore is going to take a red shirt this year. So we didn't see him playing against Charleston Southern. If he'd have played, he'd have burned his red shirt. That's a kid that I'm really high on as well, too. Uber athletic, all the talent in the world. This guy, understanding nuances of playing receiver and things like that. Now, maybe a change within the receiver room, a new coach, a fresh set of, a fresh message, so to speak, could probably elevate that development and experience so much. Not so much, but elevate that experience, that development rather, so we can see him, take that next step next year. But Elijah Moore is a guy that I'm really excited for. And speaking about the receivers, man, they made some tough catches on Saturdays, and there wasn't that many drops, if I could remember seeing it all. Excuse me. I don't remember seeing any drops. I seen a lot of tough catches on Saturday. So shout out to those receivers. After the coaching change, they actually look pretty okay. Now again, we know it's Charleston Southern, so I don't want to get too high on in regards to that. But just catching the ball, those guys have looked a lot better. Shout out my guy Marcus Graham looking in the comments, say Hussey regrets so much is mind-boggling. Yeah, that's kind of getting off topic a little bit, but yeah, I was really high on Conrad Hussey coming into this year, but the stuff he put on tape this year was pretty much bad. Well, not pretty much. It was very bad, real bad tape. Hopefully, the kid can get right in a new scenario, a new situation, or something along those lines. Lewayne McCoy is another young guy that I'm pretty excited for. We've been seeing him play throughout the year. I think he has the athleticism and things like that to be a difference maker at receiver. Makai Dansley, he's another guy I'm excited for as well, too. Had one catch for 38 yards. If Luke actually leads Makai on that throw, Makai walks into the end zone for a touchdown. You see the speed, you see the explosiveness. Even going back to the Clemson game, I think Mike did a hell of a job dialing up this play as far as a wheel route for Makai Dansley, motioning him across the field, letting him build up that track speed and running like a 200 around the curve to get upfield for the wheel route. We just didn't connect on the throw, but you see the explosiveness as well for him too. Both tight ends. I love what I saw this season, and we'll see moving forward within Amari Williams and Landon Thomas, two blue chip tight ends that we brought in last year, true freshman guys that made an impact. Mike has to do a hell of a job. These are guys I feel like we should try to keep on offense, right? So it's going to be some guys you're going to lose in the portal. A lot of guys you're going to encourage to leave throughout the portal. But these are some of the guys, in my opinion, that FSU should have a conversation with and try to keep and try to build for moving forward. So like I said, Amari Williams and Landon Thomas, two really good tight ends. I think FSU could be a problem. I think FSU could be a problem with those two guys at tight end. Mike loves running 12 personnel. And you guys aren't too familiar, 12 personnel is one back, two tight ends. So, again, I think those two can be matchup nightmares for any defense moving forward in 12 personnel, both of those guys on the field. Sam Singleton and Cam Davis. I like Sam a lot, man. I know Sam is kind of being underrated and people kind of forgot about him a little bit, but he made the most out of his opportunities this year, showed explosiveness, showed the speed. If we could get him going to get a better offensive line, I think Sam could be a problem for FSU. And also, man, shout out to Jake Weinberg, the number one kicker that we brought in last year, true freshman. We got to see him a little bit on Saturday as well. He went 1 for 1 for field goals on a 25-yard field goal, and also had a touchback on the kickoff. So you got to see the number one kicker in action, kind of a preview in the future as FSU replaces longtime place kicker Ryan Fitzgerald. You're going to replace him with a good one because, like I said, Jake Weinberg was the number one kicker in the country coming out of the recruiting cycle last year. And we saw him get a little bit of action as well. So shout out to Jake. But yeah, speaking of, like I said, the offensive line, man, it just wasn't. I don't understand how bad the offensive line could get over time. That'd be my main focus within the portal, man. Just fix the trenches, offensive line specifically, then bring in a receiver or something along those lines. But my main focus within this offseason is offensive line, trenches, 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 and trenches. We got a decent amount of here. Hit that like button if you can. Appreciate you guys. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I think I pretty much covered everything on offense. Want to jump over to the defense, and also keep in mind too, we do get Dustin Hill back. I really hated that he tore his ACL. I was rooting for this kid prior to tearing his ACL. In the few practices I went to over the spring, he was the best receiver in the receiver room, was making plays left and right. Unfortunately, he went down with the ACL injury in spring practice. And this is just, kind of adds to the, I guess, list of disappointments for him as he, had the delay in enrolling in school as well. So hopefully Dustin can bounce back and can be full strength going into spring practice. If so, he could be a weapon for FSU as well, along with Jalen Lucas. You got to remember we get him back in. I really like what we did with him in the Georgia Tech game. And then, of course, he had a season-ending injury. But he could be a guy on offense that you could, game plan around as well, too. But I like what I saw Luke. And also, like I said, Mike named Luke the quarterback for going into the Florida game. And I know people talk about portal and things like that. I guess depending on how Luke looks on Saturday against Florida can kind of be an audition for this upcoming season. If Luke looks pretty good against Florida and you feel comfortable, hey, he's going to be our guy, our true sophomore quarterback. We're going to roll with him and play with them going into the season. That could be good. Or if you feel like you need to add some depth in the portal, competition, whatever it may be, hell, you still may need to do that because you have a guy like Brock Glenn who could stay at FSU, who could enter the portal as well to try to find new opportunities. And of course, you lose DJU as well. So you're down to three quarterbacks with Jalen. I'm sorry, you're down to three quarterbacks: Luke Kromenhoek, Trevor Jackson, and possibly Brock Glenn. And that number could be two if one of those guys decides to leave as well. So you may just need to add somebody from a depth perspective within the portal at the very least. And of course, you bring in a quarterback for the 2025 recruiting cycle, which we'll get to in a second. All right, guys, hit that like button. Let's go ahead and jump into the defense. We won't spend too much time on the defense. It was kind of vanilla on that side of the ball. Only gave up 7 points and pretty much mop up duty. Um, I do think we gave up too much through the air, even though it wasn't a lot. The quarterback was 22 for 32, 218 yards, one touchdown, and one interception. Mostly they was trying to attack the linebackers and things like that, getting those guys out of space. It's pretty much what we saw early on in the season. Georgia Tech, Boston College, those teams pretty much exploited the linebackers through the air, and Charleston Southern tried to do the same. We were 4 for 12 on third downs, which was very good. But at the same damn time, those 4 third downs that we did give up was pretty much like third and long situations, including a 3rd and 18, which has been an Achilles heel for FSU, not just this year, pretty much Adam Fuller's entire tenure, aside from the 23 season. But yeah, 3rd and 18, that's something we definitely got to get cleaned up for sure. Shout out to Ashland Barker, had a nice pick as well. I'm happy he's starting to get more reps. He was a kid I was kind of intrigued with last year, and even early in the season, as far as why he's not getting more reps. The limited reps he did play in, he had a positive impact. Now, with some reps he played this year were, they were bad, and we had some long runs and things like that. But overall, he plays pretty good football. 6'3", 212, physical measurables are there. Had a pretty nice athletic pick on that play. We saw a lot of young guys play as well that I thought was pretty good from the last recruiting cycle. D.D. Holmes, D.D. was around 6'6", around 270, 275. Defensive tackle from the Maryland area. Denaz White, one of the big defensive tackle from North Carolina. And Charles Lester, shout out to Charles Lester, was one of the highly rated defensive backs for the recruiting cycle last year. Had 2 tackles in the pass breakup. Was one of the I think it was one of the few games he had action in this year. That's pretty much all I got for the Charleston Southern game. I know you guys want to hear, OC talk, DC talk, and all that type of shit. And not even just those positions, other positions as well. Let's go ahead and jump right to it as far as offensive coordinator position. The name that everyone's been hearing that's been floating around is Brennan Marion, the offensive coordinator at UNLV. I don't even know how many points per game UNLV scores. I can look it up real quick just to kind of give you guys a synopsis of how many points they're scoring this year, but just Brennan Marion in general. And as you guys know, he played for Mike Norvell at Tulsa. He was the receiver at Tulsa when Mike Norvell was coaching there. He also coached with Mike Norvell when Mike was the OC at Arizona State. He was off the field and the quality assistant coach for Mike Norvell. My apologies, for Mike Norvell at Arizona State. And even before that, man, this was really interesting. You guys know I'm a Bethune-Cookman guy, HBCU grad, that type of deal. So I go hard for my HBCU teams. But Brennan Marion, he was his first college job he was the offensive coordinator at Howard. He brought the go-go offense to Howard, the Howard Bison. And also his quarterback at that point in time was Kalen Newton. As you guys remember, he was Cam Newton's younger brother. Those guys had a prolific offense at Howard, even beating in a stunning fashion. They even beat, yes sir, my boy Cool Breeze, hell Wildcats. Damn right, baby, to the death. Yeah, going back to like I said, once he was at Howard coaching up Kalen Newton, they even beat UNLV 43-40. So that's a little bit of interesting kind of poetic justice in regards to Brennan Marion where he's currently at. But yeah, going back to then, he brought the go-go offense to the MEAC and was pretty impressive over there as well. I want to get that offensive points per game. Then we'll jump into some more. West Conference. Bear with me 1 second. I got it pulled up right here. All right, so these guys are putting up 39 points per game, averaging 432 yards of offense and things like that. I know their quarterback is leading the team in rushing. A lot of people had questions about that. But if you look at their offense, Brendan Marion is pretty much what Mike Norvell was at Memphis. You adjust your offense to your playmakers. You might had the mantra playmaker offense built for playmakers, and you pretty much adjust your offense to your playmakers. Last year, they had a gunsleeking quarterback, and they had a receiver who had Linthikoff winning type numbers. So again, I'm not worried about the type of offense he runs as far as the quarterback leading the team in rushing. They just have that type of dynamic playmaker at quarterback. If you look at their offense in 2023, they had a prolific passer and a prolific receiver. So again, he's just a guy that gets the best out of his playmakers. Going back to his early days, like I said, he's been successful pretty much everywhere he's been. He was the offensive coordinator at Howard, offensive coordinator at William Mary. He went to Pittsburgh to coach receivers. And he coached Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison won the Fred Blinthikoff Award that year at Pittsburgh. Then he also went to Texas. Sark went ahead and brought him over to Texas to be his receiver coach. Ended up coaching Xavier Worthy, first round pick for the Kansas City Chiefs. Been at UNLV ever since. So he's been the front runner in the name that's linked to the offensive coordinator position. The only way I don't see him being the offensive coordinator at FSU is if he gets a head coaching job at a G5 school. His name has been linked to other schools as far as other G5 jobs, including Tulsa, his alma mater, as a possible candidate for the head coaching job. So if he gets a head coaching job, that'll be the only way I see him not ending up at Florida State. There's been a lot of communication as far as recruits and things like that, mentioning Brendan Marion's name, so I could just kind of put two and two together. Mike Norvell is pretty much telling a lot of these guys who his choice is going to be, and I even think Brendan Marion is telling a couple of guys, hey, this is the move I want to be taking in the future. But again, he has his nothing is official until the ink is dry. He has his name in the hat for a few G5 head coaching positions. We'll see how things play out. But as of right now, all things point to Brendan Marion in the go-go offense coming to Tallahassee. As far as the offensive line position, this is probably, aside from the offensive coordinator, aside from the two coordinator positions, this may be the most, in my opinion, this is the most important hire this offseason, which is the offensive line position. And the name I'm hearing the most for this one is Mike Bloomgreen, which would be a home run hire, in my opinion. He was a former Rice head coach. He was fired this year from Rice. He was the head coach at Rice since 2018. So for 6 years, he was the head coach of the Rice Owls. So you bring head coaching experience, and how did he get that head coaching job at Rice in the first place? By being the Stanford offensive line coach and producing multiple draft picks at Stanford. He was their offensive line coach from 2012 to 2018, and that was during the time where Stanford was known for physical smash mouth football, running the ball, and putting offensive linemen in the league. So he has a keen note for recruiting and developing offensive linemen. He brings that head coaching experience as well, so that's going to be even more knowledge and wealth as far as the staff. And also, he's from Tallahassee, Florida, understands the lay of the land, that type of deal. So I think Mike Bloomgreen, would be a home run hire. He's the name I'm hearing the most as far as offensive line. So again, Mike Bloomgreen is the guy I'm hearing the most from the offensive line perspective. And I think if you move on from a coach like Alex Atkins, I think you got to go big, and Mike would be a great hire. Head coach at Stanford for the past 6 years. Head coach at Rice for the past 6 years, was the Stanford offensive line coach prior to that. So that's the guy I'm hearing for the most part as far as the offensive line coach position. I know there's a lot of talk as far as Kevin Johns once we ended up getting a surprise flip from Kevin Sperry, the 4-star quarterback out of Denton, Texas, was committed to Oklahoma, ended up flipping to the Noles out of nowhere. Really, hell, like this even caught me by surprise. I didn't hear anything leading up to it. So just to kind of give a backstory, as you guys know, and I'm gonna give once the season is over this Saturday against Florida. Next week, I'm gonna do a deep dive into this recruiting class or lack thereof of this recruiting class. Talk about all the decommitments, things like that, guys that FSU is currently recruiting and trying to do to fill in within this class. So as you guys know, like I said, I'm going to deep dive into recruiting a little bit later. Well, on a later show, I wanted to make a full episode pre-recorded in regards to recruiting. But 4-star quarterback Tramel Jones ended up flipping his commitment from FSU to the University of Florida. FSU was also entertaining Carter Smith, 4-star quarterback down from 239 Fort Myers, Florida. He ended up committing to Wisconsin. And like I said, Kevin Sperry had a flip commitment from Oklahoma to FSU. So FSU ended up getting a quarterback within this class, 4-star quarterback out of Denton, Texas, Kevin Sperry, who was leading his team to the third round of the playoffs this upcoming Friday. But so the reason being is like people's like, okay, where's this connection coming from? And it's Kevin Johns, right? Kevin Johns is on staff at Oklahoma. He is currently, well, he was off field for Oklahoma this year, but was promoted to interim co-OC due to Brent Venables firing his offensive coordinator and a few other coaches during the season because of bad offensive output. So yeah, he ended up being the co-OC for Oklahoma. Prior to his days at Oklahoma, he was the Duke offensive coordinator, helped develop Riley Leonard for 2 years at Duke. He was also Mike's offensive and this is quarterback coach too, offensive coordinator / quarterback coach. He was Mike's offensive coordinator and quarterback coach at the University of Memphis from 2009 to 2019, to 2021. He took over the offensive coordinator role once Kenny Dillingham left Memphis for the Auburn Tigers. So he's real familiar with Mike. I think Kevin Johns is going to be coming to FSU. He's the name that I've been hearing as far as coming to FSU as the quarterback coach. He's a name that's been floated around as far as being the guy for quarterbacks. I know that kind of the next question for a lot of people would be what happens with Tony Tozarks. I'm not exactly sure. He coached tight ends at Memphis with Mike Norvell. And that's not me speculating. He'll be the tight ends coach at FSU. That's currently occupied by Chris Thompson. But again, prior to coming on to FSU, he was the tight ends coach at Memphis. But I don't think FSU was done with making changes, of course, on the staff in general. But he's a name that I believe will be coming over and be the quarterback coach for FSU, and that's Kevin Johns. And being the co-offensive coordinator in this first game, actually, if not the first game, I'm not sure if it's the first game, but just the first game since the speculation started happening, they got a win against Alabama 24-3. Oklahoma did, and their quarterback against Oklahoma had 25 carries, 131 yards, which is crazy. But yeah, Kevin Johns is a guy who I think could be a pretty good quarterback coach and would be someone to watch out for the quarterback position. That's the name we're hearing as far as quarterback coach, and that's Kevin Johns, and that's the relationship we have with Kevin Sperry, the 4-star quarterback that recently committed to FSU. And again, Kevin Sperry committed to FSU. He hasn't visited FSU, which is kind of ironic, but the last time he visited FSU was the 2022 Florida game, where Jordan Travis went crazy and did his thing, and as Florida won the 9th win in the regular season, going to the 10th win in the bowl game. But ironically, that was the last time he was on campus for FSU, and he will be back on campus again, taking his official visit this weekend for the Florida game as well. All right, so that's what I've been hearing so far as the offensive staff. On the defensive side, it's been fairly quiet, to be quite honest with you guys. Haven't heard that much smoke from the defensive staff. Probably will be hearing within the next week or so, once the season kind of winds down. But one name that I have been hearing as a possible defensive coordinator is Chris Hampton. He's the co-defensive coordinator for the Oregon Ducks with Dan Lanning and staff. As you guys know, Mike Norvell and Dan Lanning have a pretty good relationship going back to their days at Memphis. And within their relationship, it's been a lot of, I guess, coaching profession and coaching relationships that kind of levy that as well in regards to, if you guys remember, Coach Loxley. People call him Meatball. Coach Loxley, he ended up being the running back coach at leaving FSU off field, going to Oregon to be the running back coach. He's currently now the running back coach at Ohio State. And of course, Kenny Dillingham ended up leaving FSU offensive coordinator to go to Oregon to be the offensive coordinator and calling plays. So Chris Hampton wouldn't be a surprise to me. He is the, like I said, the co-defense coordinator at Oregon, and he is the defensive back coach, really strong recruiter. Prior to coming to Oregon, he was the DB and defensive coordinator at Tulane, and he pretty much turned that Tulane defense around instantly. They went from 82 to 32nd in the country in scoring defense, and what's more impressive, they went from 115th to 37th overall in pass D within 1 year. 115th to 37th overall in pass defense, and we're talking at Tulane. And you look at Oregon play defense this year and even last year, real tenacious defense, defensive backs play sound football. So to grab a guy from, I guess you could say, the landing tree, to say the least, I wouldn't be mad at that at all. But again, defensive side has been very bleak as far as names we've been hearing on the coordinator side, even just names in general. So we pretty sure the more we get closer to the offseason, the more smoke and speculation we will hear in regards to what Mike is thinking to fill the defensive back position. So we'll see how things play out. But Chris Hampton is a guy to it's a personal interest in regards to what he could do for FSU from a recruiting standpoint, just a coaching standpoint and development standpoint. Having those ties to Dan Lannon, like I said, will be a major, major plus in my opinion. He's a young up-and-coming guy and a great recruiter. He can relate to these guys as well. And also, I saw someone ask about their Russian defense. I'm not exactly sure about their Russian defense, to be specific, but they did jump 55 spots in regards to total defense in 2022 at Tulane, which is damn good. That factors within, the rush defense as well. But he's a guy that I would definitely welcome to Tallahassee. And just going back to Brendan Marion real quick as far as some more information. He's 37 years old, like I said, a young guy. He's from Hampton, Virginia. If you guys know about Hampton, Virginia, like I said, I'm an HBCU guy, so I love HBCU background, so to speak. Hampton University is there, but pretty much that's a neighborhood in Virginia, where you gotta relate in regards to certain things. And I feel like he has a background that can relate to certain kids on the recruiting trail. So yeah, go bring me Brendan Marion. That's all we got right now, man. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel. We want to come back and, of course, have a pre-record dropping this to talk about Florida, give a prediction for the Florida game. And once this season concludes, this Saturday, this nightmare of a season, we'll really jump into it as far as the offseason and get busy with these coaching changes, staff changes, roster changes, things like that. I know last year we were kind of expecting it as far as, a decent exodus within the transfer portal from FSU. I think this is the year that we kind of see that. There's going to be a lot of guys that leave FSU. I think it's going to be a lot of guys that leave FSU at a certain point of, as far as just might, not necessarily just might, but just clean the house, breath of fresh air for both sides of some kids and then from FSU as well. A lot of guys just aren't FSU caliber, and we got to get FSU caliber back in. But again, it's going to be a really interesting offseason, to say the least. I said this before. I think someone mentioned that this is the most important offseason in FSU history. No, it's not. FSU will always be FSU. Whether Mike Norvell is the coach, we fire Mike Norvell and bring somebody else in, they get the job going, and they do it. FSU will be back, right? That's what I'm saying. This is the most important offseason in Mike Norvell's tenure at FSU, 100%. He has to knock out these hires, knock out the off-field hires as well, that type of deal, bring in a pretty good recruiting staff, all that type of deal. So Mike has to have home run hires off, within this offseason, guys that recruit, develop this, that, and the third. If he doesn't do that, then he just pretty much is we're just waiting on the inevitable as far as Mike Norvell getting fired at a certain point if he doesn't knock it out. But if he does knock it out and hire these guys, then it could be a turnaround and we can start winning some games. But we'll see how it plays out. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel. We got more content coming. Go Noles.